2024's ultimate movie, and that's no other than a sequel to one of the best Pixar movies ever. Pixar had been falling apart during the post-pandemic days as after cinemas shut down and people got more accustomed to Disney+, its original movies weren't hitting the same beats they used to. Because of how dark and empty it has felt for the most beloved anime company, and proven how much genuine fatigue had finally hit general audiences, many people, including Pixar, were worried that Inside Out 2 would suffer the same fate and be entirely forgotten about. But following its shocking box office performance and massive word of mouth, that was definitely not the case, since it plays almost similarly to its predecessor, but tackles young adult life points of view and how growing up can make you feel less joy. I still think the first movie is a modern Pixar classic, but the sequel is just as good, despite being a bit too on the stronger side, and maybe just as an excuse to bring Pixar back from the dead. So, how did this behemoth bring Pixar back from its grave? What importance does it share amongst all viewers? And why is it a much more difficult experience than its predecessor? In today's movie review, I'll be talking about one of the biggest surprises of 2024, Inside Out 2. How has Pixar once more stepped up its game? Let's take a further look, shall we? First off, getting the obvious out of the way, the animation is, as to be expected, absolutely clean and very much lifelike for both its characters and world building. It's of course to be expected from Pixar, but compared to its predecessor, it looks a lot better since there's more attention to detail, the colour palettes stand out a lot more, and the characters are designed to stand out in the story more, in addition to just looking better with more facial expressions. It helps give viewers the life that goes around our mind, as well as Pixar being very interested in returning to this film's premise and taking all of its ideas that made it great and expanding them to help us focus on teenage life rather than child life long ago. If there's one thing to be said for Pixar, even if their movie is good or not, the animation will always be its standing point, due to looking like modern day art in 3D form like how it's presented with 2D. It's all very excellent and also straight to the point with a special treat for the eyes. Like its predecessor, the premise is at its absolute best and still tackles something that interests us, but with a little bit of a twist. Now that Riley is more grown up as a teenager a few years after the first movie, she starts to evolve more, and as she evolves, that must also mean that new emotions must come into play to help make her life even more stable. We've seen something similar to this in A Young Mind, but now we get to see a similar take again. New emotions are introduced like anxiety, boredom, envy, and embarrassment. They all have their fair share of playtime on the screen, but anxiety here is the main spotlight of it all, as I will be talking about it later on in this review. In the meantime, we also get to see how the more you get older, the more stress you feel, which you see a lot in the movie. It maintains the creativity of its predecessor and crafts new ideas while staying away from being a typical cash grab, rather than giving older viewers something in a similar way to how they age, just like how the main movie's main character Riley has aged. Inside Out 2 takes the already great world building of its predecessor and expands it even more with clever concepts and being more packed, expanding as a true sequel rather than a series. More of Riley's life is explored, as well as her facing challenges of growing up. The emotions are put into good use again. Growing up in general plays a major part in this movie, with new friends and going out and exploring more of the world around you. And there are loads of memories to see in Riley's mind that we never got to see in the original, like her favourite childhood TV show character, Bluefy, and her low-resolution video game crush, Lance/Blade, both being respectively inspired from Blue's Clues and Final Fantasy VII of all things, which is crazy because both are very much a part of my childhood as well. Disney knows exactly how to cherish old-time viewers, even their childhood memories, because they hit note after note with little Easter eggs that you may not get at first, but once you do, it has a huge impact on you. The world building in general is more expanded, and if there's ever to be an Inside Out 3, I bet its young adult life-oriented plot could be put to some good use. Very similar to last time with its main shout-out point, the messages and themes are placed in very strong layers, always catching the viewer's attention. They're almost just as good, if not even better, than the originals. It tackles the belief system, an idea that our sense of self is a messy combination of our best and worst traits. The bad parts don't have to be suppressed just so we can be happy. They can be used or even resonated in many ways than one. It also tackles points like our puberty, anxiety, panic attacks, friendship between our friends, pressure, and emotions, still helping our health growth, truly finding us out on who we really are, increasing our lifespan, making new perspectives, and helping seek new knowledge. It goes through a change in our future lives, which is seen as more serious than good. Some messages include that we shouldn't let anxiety take over our minds because it leads to horrible thinking, us going crazy, and it just creates endless chains of negative effects. And also the message that joy delivers before the film's climax. Maybe this is just what happens when you grow up. You feel less joy. Once again, Pixar knows how to make a movie, albeit a strong one, for all ages. Lastly, despite the secondary cast not getting much action done on screen, the lead characters are absolutely fantastic with new additions to the old crew. The original 5 emotions, joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust, are as great as ever, but the new additions include anxiety, the film's main highlight of it all. She isn't a villain, she's basically what we all experience if we don't keep it in check, as I said before. The climax of the film visualizes a panic attack, where anxiety goes crazy during Riley's hockey match. It's an accurate presentation of how internal racing thoughts can manifest physically. All of it is extremely thought-provoking and great because anxiety was the highlight of changing Riley's life for basically forever. But it was all way too much for both to handle, since they couldn't settle it in at first. It's too bad that, because anxiety was used a lot, the film fails to probably give some great screen time to its other characters that were newly introduced, which could have also played a big part in the film had it not been for anxiety wanting to change things to her own liking. My only negative point about this movie, as I'm sure you heard at the end of my previous point, is that the supporting characters are extremely underutilized. It introduces us to new emotions that want to take over Riley's head. Seems like fun stuff, right? However, if you are a very character-driven viewer who watches more for the development and not so much for the story, you won't get much out of some of the minor characters. Alongside anxiety, it gives us other emotions, boredom, envy, and embarrassment, but rarely uses them. They just felt like background filler that had a brief introduction on what they do, and then stand back and just sit there doing nothing throughout the rest of the film? Okay, I mean, I guess they have some funny running gags that make them at least mildly memorable, but even the small voice acting couldn't save them. They also lack a significant character arc like Anxiety did. If this movie wanted to be better, I felt that it should have just introduced Anxiety and then saved the other emotions for another installment later on. That way this movie could have rivaled its predecessor. However, with its own original structure and a safer approach, I felt that it may not have been the perfect movie it could have been. Inside Out 2 is a very solid return to form for Pixar, everyone's favourite animation company, with similar levels of charm compared to its predecessor. The animation is top-notch and proves its peak in the current modern-day technology world. The premise is more diverse with more stuff to explore. The world building is a lot more than one would expect before going into it like before. The messages and themes are still incredible and are once again the film's main highlight. And the lead characters, notably Anxiety, are awesome, especially considering its more darker approach. Though the secondary cast of characters is really lacking, and I wish Pixar actually gave them a bit more to do. Despite that, though, this is still a really good movie that at first I thought would be a typical cash grab, but it is well written to the point where everyone can enjoy it. Children should take note while watching both of these movies, as they have a lot in common in their minds and how they need to get used to growing up in particular, and remember to always keep their anxiety in check at all times. Inside Out 2, despite facing some competition, is a great anime spectacle and should be seen by viewers of all ages until the release of Inside Out 3, whenever it's finally inevitably greenlit. As gorgeously sparkling as its predecessor, Inside Out 2 warms up the heart and levels up its intelligence by blending thematic layers of cinematic depth with minor parts of anxiety to be made out of its classic storytelling. My final score for this modern Pixar sequel is a 9 out of 10 and a grade A. Definitely not up there with some of Pixar's best, but I still absolutely enjoyed it as I got to experience more of its creativity and world building. I see many people say that this movie is extremely overrated due to its similarity to its acclaimed status and its massive box office performance. But I think sequels can help Pixar still stand strong today, as it's the only thing going for them depending on their costs. There's just something so charming to explore more of Riley's mind, and I hope they continue that trend in the future of filmmaking. But with that being said, leave a like on this video if you guys did enjoy my review on Inside Out 2, and also remember to subscribe if you're new and hit that bell icon to see more content on my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Take care of yourselves.